Hello and welcome to the Ligato show. I'm your host, Dr. Ligato, and today we're going to be reviewing a Twitter thread on the various perspectives of the Muslim governments of the world on what is going on in what I'm calling the Judeo-Islamic War of 2023. And this is by someone called Odd Things Online. And I do think that this is close enough to what I believe that it's worth going over, and then I can kind of talk about how I might disagree with some of these perspectives a little bit based on my own knowledge about the subject. So to start off with, the United Arab Emirates, this person says UAE is attempting to sell themselves as the Middle Eastern Switzerland, have used their influencers and religious leaders to discourage boycotts and protests. Many in the government think they are being attacked by Iran, Muslim Brotherhood, and they believe they are the victims of a conspiracy to derail their ties with Israel. To counter the criticism, they are getting spearheading efforts in the UN to support Palestine. I've heard this on a number of occasions, actually. There is sources out of, I believe it was Yemen, saying that UAE actually directly helped Israel to bomb Gaza, which would be extremely concerning. I also don't think that's how prior Switzerland used to work. Switzerland is not as neutral as it used to be. But it used to be a very neutral country, and it wasn't neutral because it actually took both sides. It was neutral because it didn't participate in various conflicts. And we see here that the UAE is very clearly participating in this conflict in multiple ways, such as with the stopping of boycotts and protests, the fear they have of the anti-Zionist side, because right now it is places like Iran, groups like the Muslim Brotherhood that are supporting the Palestinians, which is really kind of interesting, I guess I would say. Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood have been very anti-Assad, but then you see that forces like Assad, forces like the Yemenis, forces like the Iranians, forces like the Shia Iraq militias, they're all on the side of the Palestinian faith. And so you're seeing that the very weakened Muslim Brotherhood and their offshoots such as Hamas have, sure, they've been fighting in this conflict, but it's really been the Shia forces that have been defenders of the Islamic faith and have been helping out, whereas the other Sunni forces outside of directly the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas haven't really gotten involved overly much. So a little bit concerning there. And you can kind of see why UAE, if they do have a lot of hostility to the forces that are working on the side of Palestine, they might not be as pro-Palestine as I think their populace would really like them to be. And then on top of that, they are working very hard to help Palestine in the United Nations. But who knows how legitimate that is, or how performative that actually is. The Saudis, very busy in events in the pursuit of Vision 2030. So they're trying to reinvent their country by 2030. They want to diversify their economy, so it's not just oil. They say Shakira is coming. So Saudi Arabia is really focused on kind of Western media and entertainment, which is concerning. And this person says that Shakira takes precedent over what's happening in Palestine, doing basic back-channel diplomacy, but not concerned with Palestine, secretly hoping America takes out Iran, but do not want a big war that brings their key assets like oil plants, desalination plants, airports, or seaports under fire, policy of doing the bare minimum. I don't know how much I agree with this part. On the one hand, recent news has come out saying that they are buying missile defense shields from the United States in order to stop Israeli rockets from hitting Israel. So that tells you that they are like directly defending Israel while Israel massacres Palestinians. On the other hand, they've really made what seems to be, I would say, good faith efforts, really strong efforts to work out their differences with Iran. So I don't really know how much they want Iran to be decapitated here. I think they're just concerned about making the pivot completely into the multipolar bloc, but we'll have to see what's going on there, because I do agree that this is the country that should be the defender of the Islamic faith, and they're really doing, I wouldn't even say the bare minimum, I would say they're doing less than the bare minimum, because they're literally shooting down rockets that are attacking Israel. So Turkey is another country that I'm disappointed in, so I want to hear the opinion of this person and see what they think. Erdogan, the leader of Turkey, says one thing, does another. Local elections are coming up, appealing to his voter base with critique of Israel, still exporting goods and oil to Israel, a policy of speeches and then more harsher speeches. So, yeah, wow, I mean, Turkey is a descendant of the Ottoman Empire, and so this is directly within their wheelhouse to defend Palestine. And so you just aren't seeing the former strength, the former decisiveness, the former leadership of Turkey in the Islamic world that you used to have. I'm going to talk about this in another video, but Erdogan sounds like he wants to get involved, but then he doesn't want to be a leader of this movement. And so it's like, why are you the head of a country if you're not willing to take the initiative, if you're not willing to be a leader? I mean, you are a leader. You were voted into office to be a leader. Take on that leadership role, particularly as the descendant of the Ottoman Empire. So Turkey, I do think that if Turkey does get directly militarily involved against Israel, that's really, well, one, that's going to be the end of NATO in a lot of ways. And two, I think that's probably going to lead to World War III directly. Like places like Yemen getting involved might have a domino effect, but places like Turkey getting involved would absolutely have a domino effect. Turkey is the second largest military in NATO outside of the United States. And so it's like, it would just change things, majorly change things. So let's go into Jordan. This poster says, as always, in the pocket of America, doing some public condemnation of Israel, but policy has not changed, calling for installation of air defenses and supporting an American air bridge to Israel, tear gassing protesters and pushing local religious leaders to tell people to stop voicing concerns for Palestine. So, man, it's so hard. I understand the Jordanian king wants to stay in power, but like, if your people and the people of your faith are calling you to defend people from genocide, it's like, why are you this weak-willed? I know some people who are influential in Jordanian political circles, and it's disappointing to see that Jordan hasn't taken a stronger stance here. They have very close relationships with Palestine, not only geographically, but ethnically as well. So it's just disappointing. Egypt, another one of those weird cases where like a lot of Egyptians are in support of Palestine and helping Palestine, but then the Egyptian government is, you kind of almost want to call it an American puppet. It feels like an American puppet right now. Some of the other articles from Israel pretty much talked about Egypt as if they don't have any sovereignty. It's like, we're going to push millions of Palestinians into Egypt and they're just going to have to take them and we'll help pay for them. But sure, it's like, it's your problem. We'll just give them to you. We'll give some of your land to Palestinians. It's like, whoa, that's horrific that that type of thing happens. And it's just like the Egyptian government, which is supposedly led by the Egyptian military, it's just that so docile, that's so domesticated by Israel. It's shocking. But let's see what this poster has to say. Sisi thinking similar to the Emiratis, wants Hamas gone. Initially allowed protests, now heavily clamped down, fierce public pressure, but militarily assisting Israel, does not want a Tahrir 2.0, but also does not want to upset his American patrons. Concerned about Israel's plan to push 2.2 million Gazas into the Sinai Desert, but might be willing to capitulate for the right price. Pretty much agrees with what I was saying. So let's see. Oh, there's a lot here. Okay. The Bahrainis, not that big of a deal what they think. They're just this tiny little island working in lockstep with the UAE, attempting to avoid public attention, waiting for everything to roll over so they can go back to normal, as always, offering lip service to Palestine. Yeah, I didn't think they were that big of a deal. Let's see what Algeria thinks, though, because I think that they're going to be very pro-Palestine, occupied with planting trees and domestic issues, currently not wanting to recognize the Palestinian issue after much domestic pushback. Government issued statements in favor of Palestine. It doesn't concern me policy currently. Well, that's disappointing. I haven't heard really much out of Algeria, but I was thinking because of their role in fighting off the French colonial occupiers that they would be more pro-Palestine in terms of fighting off these Israeli occupiers, but they're just not. If this post is correct, they're not really in it. So the way I look at this entire post is, if it agrees with my current knowledge of some aspects of it, the other aspects that I don't know as much about might be correct. And so I'm not saying these are guaranteed. This is guaranteed correct information about Algeria, but I do think that it has a high likelihood of being correct. So Qatar here. Okay, Qatar is a major funder, major backer of Hamas. So I think they're going to be pretty pro-Hamas here, facilitating hostage negotiations and making big attempts to avoid a regional war, doing their best given the unprecedented amount of American pressure upon them. Yeah, that's an interesting thing here is I don't think Hamas and I don't think Qatar, their primary backer, everyone thinks Iran is their primary backer, but it sounds like Qatar is. I don't think either of them really expected this to heat up as much as it did. But this current crisis is so different from prior crises because of social media and the freely available information about what is going on. People are really shocked by what Israel is doing now. Okay, so Kuwait, this is another small country that America pretty much controls. Okay, so Kuwait, among the most loud and loyal to the Palestinian cause, financially and politically and socially providing support to Palestinians, encouraging boycotts, protests, and all forms of solidarity. Okay, this one is the one I'm most shocked by because I've always considered Kuwait to be really in the pocket of America. So seeing them not be in the pocket of America is good if true. So let's see what the Iranian Hezbollah Lebanon axis has to say. The key players in this entire thing, working closely with proxies to help the Palestinian cause militarily, taking a major risk to itself and others to strategically defeat the West and to liberate Palestine, implementing decades-long plan to remove the U.S. from the region. I wonder how much of this is supported by Russia and China, because I feel like Russia and China want to have less, how do I put this? They want to wait patiently while America declines instead of directly intervening and getting into conflict with America. So it sounds like there are a ton of channels between Russia, Iran, and China and Iran, but like, man, my best guess is I don't think anyone really understood how big of a conflict this conflict in Palestine would become so quickly. I think the Israelis and Americans are getting concerned about their declining influence, their rapidly declining influence, and so they decided to pop off just as much as possible in response to Hamas. And I do think that they allowed Hamas to attack. I just don't think they allowed this. I don't think they were expecting the severity of the attack that occurred. And I think they hyped up the severity of the attack early on because they thought it helped them, such as how 9/11 helped George Bush. But I don't think they realized that Netanyahu was supposed to be the security candidate, and so him having such an egregious error in terms of security actually, I think, backfired on him. He tried to throw under the bus the various intelligence agencies of Israel, and that didn't seem to work either. So just a weird situation. I don't think anyone expected it to escalate to this extent, but I do think that there are reasons to, in retrospect, suspect it would, just because of the existential crisis going on. Funnily enough, the existential crisis right now is for America and Israel. Not as much for Palestine, even though they're the ones being genocided, because there's a lot of supporters for Palestine right now, whereas Israel and the United States are in steep decline. So weird, interesting, obviously a sad situation considering the genocide going on. Anyways, let's go on. Pakistan. So this is another one where it's Pakistan's the only nuclear power among the Islamic factions. I mean, Iran isn't able to get nuclear weapons yet. That's been a major concern for Israel, et cetera, et cetera. But Pakistan is engrossed in its domestic politics around people like Imran Khan. None of their leaders ever really finished their entire term because Pakistani politics are so corrupt. And the United States really does not allow them to have any strong leaders. Okay, so they're trying to somehow either kill Imran Khan or remove him from the picture. Yeah, we see that nonstop. No actual support for Palestine other than aid and UN speeches. However, have issued a legitimate warning that if Iran is hit with nuclear weapons... Oh, I did not know this part. However, have issued a legitimate warning that if Iran is hit with nuclear weapons, they will nuke Israel in return and provide Turkey with the means to develop its own nukes. Okay, so that's a... Woo. Okay. So we will see if that's that truly will happen. I think the United States and Israel will hold off on using nuclear weapons on Iran initially to see if they can beat them in a conventional war, particularly because of threats like this. But yeah, it does seem like, I mean, World War III is, I would say, going to happen with at least a 50% certainty by the end of this decade. No, I'd put it even way higher, actually. I'd put World War III at about a 75 to 80% chance by the end of this decade. So hopefully, if World War III does occur, it's more of a conventional war instead of nuclear weapons. But we will see. There's been a lot of talks about the usage of nuclear weapons here. So Syria obviously is a strong supporter of Palestine. They're working to defend itself while supporting its local and regional partners. Does not have much of to fight with, but committed to a big war to defend Palestine if it breaks out. Yeah, their civilian airports are getting bombed by Israel on the regular basis. Their capital city, their major cities are getting bombed by Israel on a regular basis. But Syria is completely within the axis of resistance faction at this point because the United States tried to overthrow them. So like they are like, this is existential for them as well. And then finally, we have Yemen here, finger on the trigger, looking forward to inflicting a loss on the Saudis, Israelis, and everyone else. They think they've been wronged by increasing their presence in the war, have shot above American naval assets, and has used ballistic missiles. So they've already directly said they're getting involved in the war. So the Yemeni government is controlled by the Houthis. The prior government really fled the country and is conducting their policies while they're exiled. So the people in charge, the Houthis, have declared war. They're not in charge of the entirety of the country, but from what I understand, they're in charge of like 85% of the population. So that's good enough, I would say, to say that Yemen declared war. Let's see what else they have to say here. I was really hoping that a bigger country would declare war first, but Yemen declaring war might have a domino effect. And when I say I was hoping another country would declare war, I mean in order to stop the Palestinian genocide. We on this channel do not encourage violence in any way, shape, or form. We are just saying that we want the stoppage of violence. We want the stoppage of the Palestinian genocide. Okay, so also to note, the Muslim countries all feel like they're on a poker table waiting for someone else to make a move. Yes, that's exactly how I see it right now. There's talk of expelling Israeli ambassadors, but everyone's waiting for someone else to do it. Current discussion in the UAE has said that if Turkey expels their ambassadors and sever ties, then they could be willing to do the same, for example. Okay, so we're actually seeing, and I'm talking about this in another video, that it looks like the Latin American countries came out of nowhere and started to expel Israeli ambassadors. They started to sever ties. They started to remove their recognition of Israel as a sovereign nation. So really throws egg on the face of the Muslim countries who have been very hesitant about this. But yes, I do get that same sense that they're waiting for someone else. And those other someone else's are doing things now. Like Yemen is declaring war. And then you see places like Bolivia, Chile, I think it's Colombia, that have been removing their ambassadors. And then you see some countries just removing recognition of Israel. So I think it's happening. The dominoes are just falling very slowly. Okay, so past grievances on other regional issues and wars is playing a major role in decision making. The countries are putting their own disputes before the safety of the Gazans. So yeah, you're seeing that a lot where I do think the Sunnis are being shamed a little bit by the fact that the Shias are the ones that are acting as the defenders of the faith right now. But then you're also seeing that these other countries don't want to step up to be defenders of the faith because they're worried about taking the side of some of their enemies and making their enemies look more legitimate. And then they're worried about like, Egypt is worried about Muslim Brotherhood becoming more powerful by supporting Hamas and Palestine. And so there's a number of different moving parts here. But at the end of the day, they're still really allowing genocide of people of the same religious faith as them because they're putting their own, I would say, petty disputes above Palestinian lives. Everyone wants to be seen as the liberators of the Al-Aqsa so that they can get the prestige and power that comes with such a title. However, there's little work towards it. Everyone's shooting down each other almost as if we're on a schoolyard. No one likes anyone and everyone's bringing down each other. So this is intentional by the Americans and Israelis. They made sure that the people in charge of the Muslim world are as incompetent as possible. There used to be better leaders of the Islamic world, and that scared Israel because those leaders were in conflict with Israel. And so right now you just don't have really qualified leaders, and there's no real mechanism to remove those unqualified leaders. Okay, so lastly, the above in no way reflects public sentiment. Every single country's population are in full support of Palestine, with many calling for major action and final battle to solve the issue once and for all. So this is really interesting too, which is that, yeah, absolutely. Essentially, everyone who isn't a Zionist is a part of the non-Zionist coalition at this point. And the various Arabic Muslim populations of these countries are fully in support of Palestine. It is the governments, though, which are, funnily enough, the governments that are more directly controlled by America, which is supposed to be a democracy, are the ones that are least representative of their own people. It's countries like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Turkey. These are people who are really waffling. Jordan is another one. These are countries that their government is really waffling over helping the Palestinians, but the populations are completely in support of Palestine. And so it's just kind of embarrassing that America is supposed to be for democracy, but you're seeing that the will of the people is just not being met. It's not being handled properly in these countries, particularly the ones that are more pro-America or pro-subservience to America. Anyways, I think this thread was pretty interesting. I think it was very accurate. There were a few countries that I wasn't as sure about, but the countries that I had a lot of information on, I do think that this was a pretty accurate read on things. So I hope you enjoyed our analysis of this. Please give us a thumbs up. It helps us in the algorithm. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, critiques, please leave that in the comment box below. And we really, really appreciate our subscribers on YouTube, Rumble. We love to have engagement, whether it's comments in the comment box. We want you to see our extra videos by subscribing, etc., etc. And thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.